The Branding Your Business podcast is for small business owners looking to build a customer favorite brand and a value-driven business. From solo shows covering marketing tactics to experts sharing their brand stories, each episode delivers actionable insights for entrepreneurs who want to impact the world. We're sharing how strategic moves and authentic connections can build a profitable business minus the burnout. Tune into the Branding Your Business podcast with me, Praise Santos McKenna of Come Plum, to design a brand your audience adores while building a life you love.
Hi, welcome back to the Branding Your Business podcast. My name is Praise Santos McKenna. I'm your host and the founder of the branding studio Come Plum in San Francisco, California. I'm so excited to kick off this interview with our friend Olivia Langan. Olivia is your go-to gal for all things numbers. As a CPA and the founder of Frolic Bookkeeping, we'll be talking about frolicking a little bit more. She initially worked in individual and small business tax. However, she pivoted to bookkeeping after witnessing business owners and tax preparers struggling with or avoiding bookkeeping. I've been there before, which often led to businesses operating without a clear understanding of their financial health. Olivia is passionate about empowering small business owners to understand and love their numbers. She provides the tools and insights needed to operate efficiently, achieve financial clarity, make informed decisions, and grow their businesses with confidence. I'm so excited to have Olivia here. Olivia, how did you come up with the name Frolic Bookkeeping? How did you stumble upon that? What is the evolution of Frolic?
That is a good question. No one's ever asked me this before. I think I just wanted to put something fun and exciting with numbers instead of it being boring and dull. Like when the stereotypical accountant that you think of in your head, I want it to be bright and fun and inviting instead of something that you dread. Just make it happy, since for a lot of people, numbers aren't the most exciting thing.
This is so good because I feel like as a branding studio, a lot of time we spend with our clients just coaching them through a name, right? A lot of us can get stuck on what should this be? What are these feelings? But you did such a good job of, hey, I know bookkeeping can feel like this. And I know I want it to feel like this instead, something light, jovial, fun, almost childish, but in the best way possible. And I feel like you really nailed it with that. Which, speaking of childhood, you mentioned that you've loved numbers for a long time, which again, I'm so glad that we're all created differently and this was your journey. Tell us about your journey with numbers. Like, how did you know? Like, did your parents recognize it in you as a kid that you were just very like numbers oriented? And how did that evolve into like your majors in college to your business today?
Yeah, I have always just had a love for numbers, and I'm not sure why. My dad is pretty financially savvy, so maybe that's why, but more in his spending, he's more frugal, but he always talked about finances growing up. And then elementary school, I always remember math being my favorite subject. My math teacher would call me Speedy Gonzalez because I just loved getting through all the problems. And then in college, I think I went in as marketing because that's what my dad did. But then I was like, no, I like numbers. So I went with economics. And I loved that because it was kind of applying numbers, but in real world examples and applying it to something and understanding how the world and the finance world works, and even like economical, political sphere of how numbers impact everything. And then since I was a business major, we had to take accounting. And then I was like, oh, this is a sweet spot because it's numbers, but it's not exactly math. Math is involved, but it's like finding puzzle pieces and piecing them together. Because in accounting, everything has to balance out to work together. There's the balance sheet, which is like assets and liability and equity. And they like kind of have to balance out. So if something's wrong, you'll be able to like kind of find the missing puzzle piece and figure that out. And I loved that part of accounting and just being able to apply it with business. So that's kind of how I got to love numbers. And then after college, I went to work for a local CPA firm doing taxes, and I loved doing taxes and business planning and all of that. But I kept seeing a gap between the CPA that I worked for and the business owners that were small business owners. They hated doing the bookkeeping, and the CPA firm didn't want to do the bookkeeping either. They were focused on the tax law. So the CPA was always like, we need more bookkeepers. There's no bookkeepers around. And then I'd end up having to do the bookkeeping for them since we had to do it to file the taxes. And every time I would finish their books for the year, they would be stunned, either in a good way or a bad way. Whatever the reaction was, it was always the same, like, oh my gosh, I had no idea I made this much money, or oh my gosh, I thought I made way more money than I actually did. And they're always wishing they could go back retrospectively and change things. But since the year had already ended, you can't go back and really change anything to maximize deductions. So then I saw such a need for knowing your numbers throughout the year, because then you can plan and be proactive instead of retroactively wishing you could go back.
Yeah, this is such a beautiful business evolution story too, because this is what often happens. And this is what I love to see is that someone knows themselves really well. They know what lights them up. They maybe started off on a path, then they discover more about themselves, like, oh, I could do marketing, but actually this thing really calls to me. Wait, and as I get more into this thing, economics or accounting, I love how these things light up, which if some of you all are just listening to the audio, I want you to peek and watch like the video version of this podcast because as Olivia's talking, she is lighting up talking about balancing books. Like her face is so bright talking about just figuring out the puzzle piece of it, which this is another thing we talk a lot about on the podcast too, is staying in your zone of genius. If you hate doing your books, or if you hate sending out contracts, you can definitely find the person whose face lights up to do that thing. This is like the benefit of hiring someone like Olivia. For anyone else whose zone of genius is not your zone of genius, but I love that story of yours that you kept evolving, finding that thing that sparked. And then you saw this opportunity, you saw this gap or this need in the market of, wait, I can do this for small business owners. And it could really change their life if we do it more proactively from the beginning. I think that is so wonderful. And I want to kind of hone in on some of these transformations that you're doing with clients too, because it seems like they come in and they're like, I had no idea. So they almost go in from like clueless to wait, now that Olivia has worked with me, I could make better decisions. I could do more with my deductions. I could do more with maybe planning my prices to be a little higher. What are the other transformations that you see in people once you start working with them? They come in this way, but then they leave this
Mhm.
way.
Yeah, usually on most of my discovery calls, people are just so overwhelmed with their numbers and they just kind of throw their hands up in the air like, I don't know anything about what's happening financially. My only goal is to not be put in jail by the IRS. And they also just have no idea where their money is going, what they're spending. They have an idea of what's coming in, but they don't know their true bottom line of profit. And a lot of times, either they aren't paying themselves or they're not paying themselves consistently, and they just need more streamlined data to be able to make better decisions in their business, whether that's paying themselves a salary, owner's draw, being able to plan better of, okay, I need to set aside this amount of money for taxes even, or figure out what area to budget for. I had a client recently who runs ads through her business, and she had no idea how much she could be spending each month on advertising. And she really had to look at her numbers and the reports that I sent her to be able to get an idea of how much to spend on ads.
Yeah, that's huge too. Like we could, as business owners, be doing more if we're just not ignorant of what's going on with the numbers. And I know I identify more as a creative. I've learned to like numbers. I will admit that. I've learned to like them because it helps me make fun decisions for my business. But it's a perspective shift because I can also relate to your other clients who come to you like, I just don't want to be slapped on the wrist by the IRS, by the government saying, I did this thing. There's already so much as business owners that we have to pay attention to that we just don't want to get in trouble. We want to make sure we're doing this well. But to go from that to like, oh, cool, we could actually spend this much more on ads, or I could actually even pay myself more is a huge transformation. I feel like that could be such a big step for a lot of our people listening. If you hire someone like Olivia, or even if you just calm yourself, maybe take a few deep breaths and look at your own books. it could lead to more empowered decisions. And that's what I really love about the work that you do too. Which another key thing I've seen you talk about a lot on your website and on your Instagram is that this profit first method. And I know in a lot of coaching communities and small business communities, this is really common. And I am not the best person to summarize the profit first method, but I know that this is something that you encourage your clients to do a lot. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So Profit First is a money management system, I like to call it. It's the idea of small plates, of dividing out your money into small plates and categories. So taxes, paying yourself, business operating expenses, and then kind of like a savings profit account. And the idea of Profit First is taking like the profit from your business first. So paying yourself first, paying your taxes first, and distributing the income that you receive to those different categories instead of looking at the profit and then distributing. It's a good way and system for people who are just starting out and don't have a solid way to pay themselves. They don't know how to set aside money for taxes. So I'll recommend that if a client comes to me and they're not paying themselves yet, they don't really know how much to set aside for taxes. I usually recommend implementing a version of Profit First. It's not the best for every business, but I like to use as a rough outline and structure to use of how to manage kind of the cash of your money and splitting it out so that you do have a little bit of a business savings and taxes and you're able to pay yourself. The other way you could do it is just looking at your profit and then distributing. But I kind of like the idea of paying yourself first and going from there. I will say profit first. Like if you the first year in business, it's kind of hard to implement just because you have so many startup costs. When you start a business, you're investing a lot in yourself of coaching, brand photos, things like that. It's a little harder to do, but once you get like a year or two into business, I think it's a good way to structure the money side of your business.
Yeah, that is so helpful. And that's something we see really commonly in some of the folks that we coach too, of just like, okay, I wanted to make this much revenue in my business, but when I look at my personal bank account, I don't feel like they match up to because they weren't following this, right? As a leader, as a business owner, as a founder, your sustainability is so important to make sure you're
Mhm.
making a good living first. So putting that first and then also still paying the government what they need and then seeing, okay, what's left over to invest in other areas. I also like what you said that the first year of business we want you to implement systems, but it might not be the right time to implement a system like this just because the startup costs, or you just almost don't know enough about the seasons of your business, or even you haven't finalized your offerings. A lot of people are in beta mode that first year of business and they're still not quite sure how this business has legs yet. But once you get into year two, year three, this is the time to implement systems like this too. This is the time to prioritize yourself. This is a time that hopefully you know yourself enough to know, like, oh, I actually like leading this business. Oh, I want to make sure this is viable for the long term as a business and for me too. So it sounds like this profit first method could really help folks.
Do you ever feel like you wear so many hats as a small business owner? I totally get that. Here at Come Plum, we want to keep you in your zone of genius, how you serve and show up for people. So leave the branding to us. In a collaborative way through brand coaching, we help you define your brand foundations, your brand strategy, and your brand expression, all that fun stuff like logo, websites, videos, photos, and more. If you go to comeplum.com and mention in the contact form that you heard about us through our Branding Your Business podcast, you get cool perks like an extra hour of coaching or maybe even 10% off your coaching package. We can't wait to collaborate with you to build a brand that you and your clients love.
Do you have some transformation stories of folks who like started implementing this and have you seen their just like light bulb go off once they started doing it?
Yeah, some of my clients use whatever works best for them in their head, like, they don't fully do it, but my one client has an expense account and then, like, a general business operations account, and she'll kind of accrue money and set aside money throughout the year in her expense account, so when she does have a big purchase, she can pull from that kinda, like, expense savings account, so it's not, like, a huge hit to her cash all at once, like, she's been planning for it. And that's really helped her. And then I just have clients who, again, like don't pay themselves. And I always say, like, once you get through the first initial hump of your business where you're not spending as much, you can start paying yourself. And I'm like, you have to pay yourself in your business because you kind of have to get rewarded for what you're doing. If you're just working and not getting like the rewards of that and not paying yourself, it's like you're going to burn out and not enjoy it as much. Like you have to be able to also run a sustainable business that's going to support your lifestyle, which I'm a huge advocate for that. Like your business is there to help support your personal goals and lifestyle. And you have to get in the routine and habit of paying yourself from your business so that you can keep running your business and come to work with joy and be able to do it enthusiastically. Whereas I see people who don't pay themselves that much, like they kind of dread going to work and they don't have the same like spark to keep bettering their businesses when they aren't paying themselves.
Yeah, this is really huge just because it sounds like joy, enthusiasm. These are general things that humans often want, right? Like when we are starting to work for ourselves, people aren't forcing us to do this. This is often a choice. We want a better life than what we had before. But then if you set up systems in your business that actually leave you more begrudging than before, then something's off. Like the value and the action didn't quite match up, which is a big thing in the work that we do as a branding studio is helping people really hone in. Okay, what are your business's values? What are your personal values? And how can we make sure your schedule, your offerings, how you spend your time aligns with that too? And I would love to ask you this as a finance expert. Say someone has the values, yes, of joy and enthusiasm, or perhaps you can think of some other values of the clients that you've helped. How have you helped them make aligned choices with their finances? How has that looked practically? Let's take it from the ethereal and hypothetical to, oh no, her name is Jan and she really wanted uh to vacation once a month. And so she did this instead. Do you have any stories like that of aligning brand values with our finances?
Yeah, a lot of my clients with the work life balance and be able to create a business that can kind of run on its own, like obviously to put some input into it. My one client who's a web designer took a maternity leave and we kind of planned around the expenses that she's going to have while she's out and income and figuring out how to run her business and team while she's still out on maternity leave so she can step away from the business yet still pay herself and have her business running not on its own but with like the team around her and how that's going to work out. So we kind of planned ahead in advance of saving money aside and planning out what those expenses are going to look like while she is gone so that she's able to step away and spend time with her new baby, but still have the cash flow coming into her business.
That's huge. And that's a really great foresight and a great encouragement for us to build our teams because there's going to be times in life that we know are coming, whether it's like a maternity or paternity leave. There's also some unexpected times that are coming with health or with caregiving that we need to set up systems that will sustain us, that will help us. And it sounds like she was very smart because she already like hired you, but she also had a team in place to help those things line themselves. So for those listening, this is just a great time for you to like sit a little bit of what do you want your business to do for you? What kind of life do you want to live? What kind of values do you want it to exude, to put out in the world? And then making aligned decisions with that. Maybe some of your decisions will mean to up your savings account. Maybe your decisions will mean to up your prices. Maybe your decisions will mean add a few more income streams so that those values could be realized. Which I want to turn it around. We've talked a lot about some of your clients and some of their stories. You are a genius with numbers. You are a genius with your business. But a little bit of your story in running Frolic Bookkeeping, have there been times where you also had to reevaluate, okay, something is off in running this business or like this value or dream that I had initially? I need to switch, I need to change, or I need to make a different choice. Were there people you had to hire to or align with your values, offerings you had to stop doing to more align with your values? What was that like for Olivia and Frolic Bookkeeping?
That is a good question. So, since I love numbers, I'm always like projecting and forecasting my business. And I know when I usually pay for a lot of subscriptions annually. So they get pulled once a year from my business. And I need to make sure I have the cash on hand for those purchases. So, something I use like a version of Profit First in my business. And there's those profit percentages that are like ideal to set aside. And I'll like look further down the line and I'll be like, I need to change the percentages of how much I'm paying myself for this month to be able to cover my business expenses, because I know it'll be a higher expense month because of annual subscriptions renewing, and be able to be so in tune with my finances to be able to see that and be able to adjust how I distribute my money for those higher expense months has been really helpful for me, and being able to plan out my business.
Yeah, that is such a practical way too that we aren't, this is a whole other conversation. There are different like salary limits that you do need depending on the different formation that you have too, which again is like a whole separate conversation.
Yeah.
But if you are the one deciding your salary and if you are the one as like the CEO of your business, you have some flexibility to do things like that. You have some flexibility to be the decision maker of like, okay, I can adjust my salary this month so that I can pay for this bigger expense. And then
Yes.
next month it'll rebalance it out again. I feel like that is such a specific and good example to really carry that out. Are there other big changes that you see for yourself? Like what's new on the horizon? Are there other problems that you want to solve for your clients? Are there different things that you want to do personally? What's on the horizon for you?
I am wanting to build out my CFO services. So it's more high touch, high tune financial kind of management. Because with monthly bookkeeping, I work with them monthly, but we don't go as far as to like budgeting and projections and cash flow management. Some clients and some people want a higher touch point, and what we are talking about earlier is personal goals and personal finances, and that's something that we really incorporate into our CFO package. Is we usually start by looking at the personal side of your life of what goals you want to achieve, like whether financial or values of like spending more time, go on vacation more, and we kind of figure out how your business is going to be the catalyst for achieving those personal goals and kind of building out your finances for the years that you can achieve and hit those. I've seen the need for more monthly help of higher level to be able to hit their personal goals and their business goals. So that's something I'm excited about for 2025 in Frolic Bookkeeping.
Yeah, that is so good because I feel like people will be like, okay, girl, I not only need you to balance my books, I need you to just help me think about money in general. And I love our small business community that you don't have to hire a full-time CFO. This is like this fractional service that you still have someone who's very knowledgeable, very experienced, knows your books well, and you're just getting deeper services with them and a deeper thought process with them, which I think is so perfect. Okay, we're going to end our podcast with this fun game. We've talked a bit about brand values. We've talked a bit about really aligning our actions in our business with our values as well. And we talk a lot about in branding that it's what people think, feel, and say about you, right? So if someone says, oh, Olivia, as a bookkeeper, she makes numbers really fun, or she makes them feel light, or I feel empowered. And I know in our world, we know so many businesses or we know so many brands. And so I'm going to pick out a few cards. And I'm just going to I haven't premeditated these, but I'm going to put them on the screen. There'll be different values. And you tell me the first thing that comes to mind. It could be a celebrity. It could be a big box name brand too. But are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm nervous, but
Okay. What is a brand that embodies security? Oh, let's see if my camera will get this.
security.
Do-do-do-do.
I think of a brand, I think it's called Barabee. They make weighted blankets, and that just, I sleep with that all night, and I just feel so much more secure. And when I put it on, I'm like, oh, it like relieves anxiety, and I just feel like secure in my own little bubble.
I love it. Shout out to Bearby. Shout out to weighted blankets. I definitely use, what is it called? Like a weighted lap pad when I'm at my therapist's office. Like if I just need something instead of a whole 20
Mhm.
pound blanket. I love that. Okay. Here's another one. Power.
Think of BioLite, which is a red light therapy brand, or Higher Dose, because I just feel like, well, you plug them in and obviously it creates like a power electrical thing, but I feel like it refuels me and powers me for the day when I do red light therapy. So that's what makes me think of power.
My goodness, you are just like trending right now on social media. I have so many friends who are like, oh, just my casual red light therapy to kick off my day. I love it. Okay. What about this one? Uniqueness.
Uniqueness. Honestly, I think for people, they have unique clothes. Like some of it is more mainstream, like a lot of people wear it, but I feel like they have some fun, unique pieces that speak to me sometimes.
Yeah. Free people for a statement piece. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is so fun, Olivia. I know people will want to connect with you, connect with Frolic Bookkeeping. How can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Frolic Bookkeeping, and then my website is www.frolicbookkeeping.com.
Okay, cool. We'll add it to the show notes as well. Thank you so much for being on the show and just sharing your wisdom, sharing something that honestly scares a lot of business owners talking about finances. I even feel like your summary of profit first, people will munch on for a while of, am I paying myself enough? Am I doing enough? Am I putting myself first to make my business sustainable? And I really think it's going to make a difference. So thanks so much for sharing that with us on the show today.
Yeah, thank you.